Hey everyone. All right, a little 30-second intro. It's playing around, trying to improve things. My face looks really bright because I'm sitting in front of the French doors across the trophy room, and the sun is like shining through, which I really can't complain because that means it's beautiful outside, but it's killing my eyeballs. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started because I have a lot of stuff to go over. And I did a PowerPoint more to help me stay on topic. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull that up. I don't need this right now. All right, let me see. We are going to do this for right now. Hey, Garden State. Hey, Mohawk and Simply Jan. Share screen. We're going to go over to here. All right. Oh, good. You guys can see it. So I want to see if I can go. Hi, Mackenzie. There we go. This way you guys can see it a little bit better. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Once I get done with this presentation, then we'll go into Q&A. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the 7 senses of autism. When we're in school, we're always taught that there's 5 senses, but there's actually 7 senses of autism. So with autism, there are sensory and movement differences that reside in the brain. Individuals with autism have unique brains. They operate differently from those who are neurotypical individuals. Neurotypical individuals are people that do not have anything going on neurologically in their brain that is not what is considered abnormal or certain conditions. Sensory and movement differences are one of the very key components. I'm sorry, I have a hard time with my English and my vocabulary. Are the key components of autism. Simply because these are one of the most noticeable things, usually, depending on where the person is on the spectrum. The first key component of whether or not someone's autistic used to be verbal, but that's no longer the case in these days. Now that we know a lot more about autism than we did in the past, there are other traits of autism as far as the senses that are coming into play more than others, and sensory and movement is definitely one of those. And we're going to talk about that. So let's talk about what the 7 senses are. And no, I promise there will not be a quiz afterwards, because I know this looks like something you would see in like a classroom or whatever. But honestly, this was for me. All right, the first is sight. The second is your hearing. Your sense of smell, touch, taste, balance, and movement. Balance and movement are the 2 components that are not usually talked about when it comes to neurological differences. But balance and movement is not only important for those who are on the spectrum, they're also important for those with ADHD, SPD, ODD. ODD is oppositional defiance disorder. SPD is sensory processing disorder. Most of us who are on the autism spectrum have some sort of sensory processing disorder. And then ADHD is actually within the autism spectrum, but not everybody with ADHD is diagnosed with autism. Sensory problems. We're going to talk about over responsiveness first and kind of define that for you so you understand how this pertains to those of us who are on the spectrum. When your senses are over responding or hypersensitive, that's what over responsiveness means. You'll experience more intense experience than a neurotypical person might. You may be overwhelmed by certain kinds of lights, sound, colors, odors, foods. Certain kinds of touch and fabric textures can be very unpleasant as well. And you may feel easily unbalanced by certain kinds of motion as well. Now we're going to talk about under responsiveness and what that means. What does it mean to be under responsive? It's when your senses are under responding or hyposensitive. Instead of hypersensitive, it's hyposensitivity. You'll be oblivious or numb to sensory experiences that neurotypicals respond to. So basically, you're not responding in a way that is expected. You may seem indifferent or have a lack of response to sight or sounds. So a lot of times, and I did find this with myself, even to this day at my age, I can hear a voice, but I'm not hearing the words. The words are not forming in my brain, and so I don't respond because I don't think it's someone talking to me. I think it's just some kind of background noise. Or there were times when, and still to this day, when I'm calling our son's name and he's not responding to his name being called. And it's not that he's ignoring me. More times than not, there are times when he is ignoring me, but more times than not, it's not registering. His brain's not responding to his name being called. You also may seem unaffected by pain or indifferent to extreme temperature changes. And then lastly, you may have extreme difficulty with handwriting, sewing, utensils, or hand tools. Our son is still trying to learn how to use certain utensils. He can use scissors just fine, but he's having a difficult time with knives. He's in Cub Scouts, so he's learning how to use a pocket knife. He was definitely behind his peers in handwriting, and his handwriting it's gotten a lot better. But I mean, he's 9 years old now, and most 9 years old, you can pretty much read their handwriting really clearly. So handwriting is difficult for him. All right, we're going to specifically talk about balance. Balance is one of the biggest things that I myself and my son do have challenges with. Now, in regards to balance, if you're over responsive, you can have difficult changing speed. So, for instance, Z has a hard time with running. He can run slow, but if he tries to change the speed and run faster, he ends up tripping and falling. Difficulty changing direction when I even have this issue where I'm going a certain direction or I'm doing something and then I have to turn really quick to do something else. I can be very clumsy, and it can be hard for me to change direction. Same thing with our son. Especially like when he's playing on the playground and I get to sit back and kind of watch him play or try to play with others. When he's actually in the mood or he feels like he can connect with somebody and play with somebody, a lot of times if they're running around and he tries to change which direction he's going, he usually more times than not ends up falling. Can cause coordination problems. Now, there are some of those that are autistic that play sports with no problem. There's basketball players, there's wrestlers, there's football players. You got to remember you can't put an autistic person in a box. Everybody is different. Everybody is across the spectrum to one extent to another. So not everybody is going to have coordination problems. These are just some of the things that can come up. And then the person, when they're over responsive, can appear to be clumsy. Now, when under responsiveness comes into play with balance, this is kind of what we see when someone is under responsive to balance. They have difficulty staying still. They seek sensory stimulation, and it may cause them to do a lot of rocking, spinning, crashing into things. And it can come across as being very hyper. And it's not that they're hyper. It's just that when they're under responsive with balance, they can't control always what they're doing. A lot of times, especially if I'm in a crowded place and I'm being overstimulated, and I'm sitting in church, for instance, I will usually slightly sway side to side or backwards and forwards. And actually, in one of my videos, if you look really closely, and I didn't notice it until the other day, and actually my husband pointed it out. If you go back and you re-watch my chicken coop video towards the end, you will see me rocking in that video. I'm slightly swaying in that video. All right, let's talk about motion. Over-responsive to motion pretty much looks like this. It's an inaccurate perception of position, where you're at. You can't quite, your brain is not registering where you're at that moment of time. And it can cause a lack of coordination. And it also can appear that you're clumsy. And it can also be hard for you to get moving. A lot of times, if I'm having an over-responsive reaction, sensory reaction, because I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and I find this a lot when I'm trying to walk, because my balance is really bad, because I have other things in play than just my autism. I have my arthritis and my disintegrating hip. And then my artificial hip on my right side is overcompensating, so I have pain there. So my brain wants to move, but then at the same time, my body doesn't want to move, because I'm feeling unbalanced and I'm feeling an overload of sensory information, and it's almost like I'm paralyzed. I'm stuck in one spot. It's the best way I can describe it. And then in regards to motion, when you're under responsive, you have difficulty inhibiting movement, meaning having control over your movement. So it may look like odd gestures or tick-like motion movements. So like the flapping of hands or the rocking or swaying, those kinds of things are signs of the motion sensory in the brain being under responsive. And the brain is not able to control what the body is doing movement wise. And then movement can be hard to stop once it starts. There are times when my son is overstimulated, and you can see it in his movement and in his motion, because he's walking around on his tippy toes, and his dad will tell him, "Son, you need to get off your tippy toes." And he wants to get off his tippy toes, but he's already on his tippy toes and he's in that movement and he can't stop. It's hard for him to stop. He has to basically try and tell his brain to stop, and it's not an easy thing to do. Sensory and movement differences as strengths. I like to remind people that although these can be a hindrance and can be complicated in our lives, there are some actual strength to some of these as well. Sensory movement differences. We have an all or nothing sensory experience sometimes. So when we're experiencing something that makes me happy, we feel it very, very intensely. Or if we are in the middle of doing something and we really want to get a goal done, we have the ability to not stop and persevere until we get it done. So basically, we have a tendency to keep moving once the task is underway, because once we're able to get that movement in there and we're able to overcome that sensory issue we're having, more times than not, we're not going to stop until we get the task done. So that's a really good strength that we have. We have the capacity for pleasure. So because we can feel things very intensely, we can feel pleasure better, if not more, than your neurotypical person can. So when you're hugging someone, you'll feel a hug, but when we get a hug, we feel it everywhere, and we feel the hug very, very intensely, which means a lot of times we feel a more intense happiness or love. I guess is the best way I can explain it. And then a lot of us have perseverance that you would not believe. Like I said, once we get started on something, we want to finish it. We want to get it done, which is why it's hard for us to transition to doing something else, because our brain is finally focused. It's doing what we want it to do, and we want to get this done. And then someone's telling us to stop and do something else. That is a lot of the reasons why we do have a problem with transitioning. So when my son is working on something, or even when I'm working on something and I'm getting interrupted, I will verbally say, no, let him finish this, and then we can continue and do whatever it is you want. Or no, I will do that once I'm done with this. I have to finish this. That's part of autism acceptance. Now, is that easy to do when you're in a school setting when you're a child? No, because school wants you to do what they want you to do, and they want you to do it now. So with our son, we had to fight for accommodations because our son's considered higher up on the spectrum. And so we had to really fight for transition assistance, meaning they have to give our son 5 to 10 minutes. They have to let him know 5 minutes before the transition is coming. Okay, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead and start wrapping up. Get yourself to a place where you can save where you're at, because we're getting ready to transition into another activity. That gives our son, his brain, a chance to accept the fact, okay, I'm not going to get this project done. Where do I want to stop? And where do I want to save my spot? So when I'm done doing this other thing and I have free time, I can come back and finish this. That is very important to get into your child's IEP at a school, especially if they're higher on the spectrum. I cannot express that enough when it comes to the public school system. Now, when you're homeschooling, you have free reign to do what you want. I am not available or have the ability to homeschool my son because I don't have the patience that it takes to homeschool anybody's child, much less my own. So that's why we chose public education for our son, because it's what's best for our family. So everybody is different. So those are the 7 senses, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that little small tiny presentation. I do have it in a PDF form, and I'm going to click and share my link. If one of my moderators would be willing to come up here and help me with questions that the people in the chat may have, because I do have a hard time looking at the live chat as it's going and speaking at the same time. I mean, I try my best, but it doesn't always work out. My coordination with my eyes and my brain isn't the best, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to post the link. There it goes. And if one of my mods can hop up here and help me navigate questions. Oh, thank you, Gail, for posting people's channels that have come in. So who has come in while I was speaking and looking at my slide? Hi, OCD-ish chick. How are you? She's been homeschooled since the 3rd grade and does so much better. That's great. That's wonderful. I wish I could homeschool. I was forced to homeschool during the pandemic, and he did really, really well, actually. He did better than what he did in public school because where we were, the teacher wasn't all that great. She was micromanaging our son to death. But since we've moved here and the school district is different, and our accommodations are being met, Zayden is excelling wonderfully. Of course, the classroom is really tiny. I only have like 10 students. Hey, Lori, thanks for joining me.
Hi. I'm watching questions.
Oh, I'm sorry you're not feeling good. It's okay, Tinker's Wife. You can watch the replay. For anyone who wants my presentation, I did save it in PDF form, and you can email me. You can email me the request, and I can literally email it to you, and I'll type in my email address. All right. You should see my email address pop up here shortly. But yes, definitely, if you want the PDF format of my presentation that I gave today, please feel free to email me, and I will email it right to you. I do not mind sharing it. Hi, Mike. How are you? Hey, Patty. My mic is crackling pretty bad at times. Oh, darn it. I hope that just started and wasn't in through the entire presentation. Is it still crackling now?
Not at the moment.
Okay, because I'm showing I have perfect bandwidth. It says strong. So I'm not sure why it's doing that. Or why it was doing that. Hopefully it didn't do that during the presentation. I'm kind of looking up through the chat that I missed while I was doing my thing. Did you notice I changed my cover photo for my channel a little bit? I changed lifestyle to just life, Lori.
Oh, I didn't look, no.
Mackenzie says, yeah, I can't multitask like that either. You know, it's funny because there are certain things I can multitask at, and then there are certain things I can't. It just depends on what it is. So.
Looks fabulous.
Were the Vineyard Chicks in here? Because I see that Gail had popped up their hey, Heritage Heartland. Well, hello, Vineyard Chicks. If I missed them, I don't know if they're still in here or not. I'm looking for questions. I don't see any so far. Yep, they were in here. I missed all of that. Let's see. Yeah, Tinker's Wife says my mic is crackling and cutting out. I may have to redo this presentation and just do a voiceover and videotape it that way, and then re-upload it onto YouTube. You know, I can do that with what is it? I think I can do that with my Video Guru. Hi, Spitfire. How are you?
Hi, Wendy. Nice to see you. See you.
Yes, Mike. Gail is a very loving and caring person. That's for sure. All right. So Patty says that during the presentation, it was crackling. It sounded like a connection in your mic itself and not the internet. Well, my mic is on my laptop. So I'm not sure, but I will just have to figure out a way to, I don't know how to do that. How to do my PowerPoint as a video. I guess I'm going to be learning something new then.
You can do it in PowerPoint. You can set it up to run itself and transition as you want it to, and you can even set it to music, or you could link it to a voiceover.
Yeah, I was thinking about linking it to a voiceover. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out after I get done with this. I just got back from rehab and drank too much. No therapy back there again.
How's your hip, Wendy?
Okay, Patty said it wasn't terribly distracting. Go back and listen to your video, and then if you decide it is, what I would recommend. Okay, I will. I'll look back at it and take a look. Yeah, see, so I've been trying to, under a panic situation or pressure, what is the best way to let me put this up because we actually got a question. I love questions. This is the only time I love questions. I don't like questions in writing. I don't mind being up here and answering questions, though. Under a panic situation or pressure, what is the best way to calm down or help an autistic person relax and get their breath and refocus on the situation? Okay, it depends on what's going on, Joe. If it is has to do with being in crowds, or it could be an area where it's noisy, first thing you need to do is figure out, okay, what is causing the panicky situation or the pressure? The next thing to do is to get them in a place where it's not so chaotic, calm, or quiet. And then I always carry around sensory things in my purse, not just for myself, but for Z. So if I'm in a situation where I can't get away and I have to just put up with it, I have something for my hands to do to help me stem. I am a pro stemmer, meaning I have no problem with accepting anyone who's stemming, because that is how we re-regulate, that's how we catch our breath, and that's how we calm down. There are situations where I literally have to leave where I'm at and go seek refuge in a quiet place. Like a couple of Sundays ago when we tried that one church again, I literally had to leave. I couldn't handle it. And I literally sat in my truck and watched the service live through Facebook while our son was still in children's church, because I couldn't handle all the stuff that was going on around me because there's just too many people. So I guess the answer to your question, Garden State, is have a sensory pack with you, stuff that your son likes that will help him stem, that will help him re-regulate and calm down. And your son definitely will have his preference of what he likes to mess with. And I always like to promote healthy stemming. One of the things my son and I do that's not healthy is we bite our nails. My nails have finally grown in and they're looking nice. My son's are so short, they're pretty much past the skin. And that's because, and I hate this, at the moment, because they have to wear masks and the pandemic is going on, my son is not allowed to have his sensory bag. My son, his sensory calming technique is to chew on things. So now he's chewing on his masks, and he has, he's ruined about 5 masks in less than a month, where he's literally chewed a hole through the mask. But he's not allowed to have his chewer, because his chewer, even though we asked if he could hang it on his neck underneath his shirt, he would have to bring it out of his shirt and put it underneath his mask to chew on. And they said that's a sanitary issue. And until the pandemic is situated, he can't have his chewer. So these are the kind of things we deal with. Let's see. Nisi, as I said to you, my brother has autism. It was hard growing up with him because back then in the 60s, they didn't have ways to help him. Yes, that is true, Spitfire. They didn't have ways to help. They didn't understand what it was. They didn't understand what autism was. There was a lot of things being done to autistic individuals that I don't even want to address in this video, because unfortunately, a lot of it does trigger some bad memories for some of the older generation of autistics who lived through that era. And I'm just going to say there were some very horrible, horrible things being done to try to cure them rather than learning what it was and giving them tools to use to compensate. He's now 64 and lives by himself, and he has coped all these years. Good for him. Hey, Hidden Harvest, that's wonderful news, Spitfire. Absolutely wonderful news. But you're right. They didn't really understand what it was back then. And they were so busy trying to cure it. They totally missed the most important part, and that was teaching tools to help them be able to learn how to regulate and be able to learn what their strengths were and build on those strengths so they could create a life for themselves. So, and you do have some individuals that are severely autistic, and some of them even end up in homes because their parents have died and they're not there to take care of them. There are autistics that need a lot of support. Physical support is what I'm mainly talking about. And so, yes, those situations are there, but the most important part is that they're treated with respect and they're treated like human beings. Let's see, neither did my mom and dad, which they weren't very patient people to begin with. Yeah. Well, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 43. People told my parents I was just hard-headed, strong-willed child, rebellious child. They told my parents I was just being lazy. I have severe executive functioning issues, so my room was always a hot mess. I mean, my room was a mess. Things were just everywhere. So my parents didn't even know I was ADHD. They had no idea. They just knew that no matter what they tried, I would not do what they were telling me to do. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it. It's just they were trying to teach me how to do it, and things were not connecting in the brain. It wasn't until I got diagnosed that, and I told them the diagnosis, they were like, a light bulb went on. They're, oh, this makes so much sense because, I gave them all the tools they needed to learn what autism was and what ADHD was. And so the picture made sense. And then they went through a guilty period where they felt guilty. Well, if we only knew. Well, they didn't know. Back in them days, even back in them days when I was a child, there wasn't, unless you were the classic case in a box, you were just a troubled kid. So, we know a lot more now than we did back then. And that means progress, and progress is what's important. And we're even in today's society, as much as we have learned about autism, and unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations that I'm 100% against because they are still focusing on curing it. Well, that's fine, but it's a neurological difference one for one. Autism itself is not the disability. It's the symptoms that come with autism that causes someone to be more disabled than somebody else. But even with that said, even if you have someone who's severely autistic, they still have abilities that they can use to make their lives fulfilling. I don't know if that makes any sense. So awareness is very important, but we need to focus on acceptance, and with acceptance comes education. And there's nothing wrong with stemming to calm yourself down, as long as it's healthy, as long as you're not physically harming yourself. And a lot of times, an autistic individual will end up doing a harmful stem because they're not being allowed to do the positive stems. Does that make sense? So if they're not allowed to twirl their hair or play with something fuzzy or something squishy, or chew on a chewer, they may get so overstimulated that they end up melting down, and they may bang their head, or they may start hitting themselves. Usually an autistic individual doesn't go to that length until they get to the point where they're not being allowed to be able to self-regulate the way that they need to. Making sure I haven't missed any. Is there any other questions that anybody has? And then we can just open the chat up for whatever you guys feel like. Hey, hands in the dirt, how are you? So you guys know that we're going to be going on to La La Farms here very soon with hey Stacy, hey Indiana Backyard Gardener, if that's, I don't know who Stacy is, but anyway. So you guys know we're going to be going on to La La Farms on March 31st with Hat Creek. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is therapeutic properties. And I really hope you guys watch that live. It's on a Wednesday night. And we're going to be sharing a lot about what.
I have to go.
Okay.
That was a call. I have to go. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Have a wonderful day.
Let's see. That's a good question. Oops. I know I'm breaking up. I'm sorry. I don't know why, because I'm showing that I have a strong signal. So I don't know why I'm breaking up. This is why I haven't been doing lives very often, because this is what happens to me. And I'm not showing, I have a strong signal. So I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. And I don't know why I'm buffering either. Because I'm in StreamYard and it's showing very clear. So it must be, the problem must be where it's going from StreamYard over to YouTube. All right, were you ever on a lot of medication? No, because my parents didn't know that I needed to be, that they didn't know what was wrong with me. I will tell you that when I was a young adult, literally right out of, even in high school, I drank alcohol. I was self-medicating to deal with all the issues I was having, because I didn't understand why I was having them. And I just wanted to slow my brain down, and I wanted to numb my senses, because I'm sensitive to everything. I'm sensitive to light, smells, odors. There are odors that can literally send me into a meltdown, that I just can't handle smelling. I have sensory sensitivities to taste and textures in my mouth. And then I also have sensory sensitivities to fabrics. So, and I do have balance and motion issues as well. They're not severe, but they are there, and they can cause me some discomfort. I am on medication now because, going through all these years of not having a diagnosis and just thinking I'm just this failure and lazy person, I developed very horrible depression. Not the sad cry depression, but very angry on the inside. And I feel aggravated and irritated all the time. So I am on medication for that. And I'm on another medication to help manage my mood swings, because I can't always manage my moods. Of course, going through menopause doesn't help it. It just makes everything worse. And I have a problem with getting motivated in the morning to get stuff done. So I'm on medication for that. And a lot of that has to do with my ADHD. I'm severely ADHD, so it's hard for me to focus. So I am on a medication for that. So I'm on 2 medications, but they're they're at the lowest dose possible for my age. I could probably go up a little higher on my dosage, but I don't like doing that. The lowest dose possible. I know the sound in my mouth aren't syncing up. I can't help that, you guys. This is why I don't like doing lives. I think the next time I do one of these, hi, believe it on the cross, I think, and then next time I do one of these, I'm going to try doing a live one more time, and I'll do it next week. But instead of doing it on StreamYard, I'm going to do it directly through YouTube and see what the quality is like. And then if that doesn't work out, I'm just not going to do lives anymore. I live in the mountains, and I have no control of the quality of these things, unfortunately. I've tried doing this upstairs. I've tried doing it downstairs on my PC when I'm directly linked into my router, like StreamYard says, and I'm getting the same quality no matter where I'm at. So if you guys could just hang in there with me. Yes, Mackenzie, you're relating to some of this, I see. So is there any more questions that anyone has for me? Without giving the information away, so like I was saying before, I got on a total rabbit trail and a tangent and had my ADHD moment on live YouTube. Yes, a lot of misconnection when you're live in the mountains. Absolutely, Spitfire. The 31st, Lala Farms, Hat Creek Homestead, and Free Handling Made, our family, is going to be on their live, and I hope my connection is okay when I'm on their live. Z and my husband will be a part of the live. I don't know how much Z's going to participate. He may not even want to show his face. He may just cuddle into Daddy's shoulder or something. And then if he's completely uncomfortable, we will not make our son be on video. It just depends on how he's feeling that night. But I hope you guys make it. I am very excited to share the positives of what we've experienced with living on our homestead. We're in the very beginnings of our homestead. We don't have livestock yet. We're still in the renovation process of our homestead. And Z is very excited to get his hands in the dirt and to learn how to grow and use garden tools. He loves using his hands and being outdoors. Like, there's just so many benefits, and we're going to be talking about those. I know I'm breaking up a lot. I'm sorry. Let me see. Let me try. All right, I'm going to see if that helps. Yeah, I just don't get it because I'm showing I have a strong signal. So I don't understand. Indiana Backyard Garden wants to know if I was diagnosed before marriage. No, my diagnosis came way after marriage. It came way after our son was born. We fought since our son was an infant up to his 5-year-old birthday before we could get our son diagnosed. So it was definitely after my husband and I were married and after we had our son. It was through our son diagnosis when I got my diagnosis. And if you guys want to know our full story, I have a diagnosis video. Part 1 is the diagnosis of my son, and part 2 of the diagnosis journey is my story. If you guys want to go back through my videos, you'll find them. I think in the Autistic Education playlist, you'll find them there. I think I'm autistic too. I pick fuzz on blankets and sweaters. I've had many diagnoses in the past, and I have been on everything in the book. I'm so sorry, Mackenzie. And unfortunately, your story is very, very common. Females go undiagnosed and misdiagnosed all the time. And it's because we mask very well. And masking is a way to blend in so we don't get picked on, or so that we can fit in or look normal, or we're, we know we're different. And so we mask and pretend like we mimic those around us to appear normal. So you may be autistic. Now, it's difficult to get a diagnosis as an adult. And most people say, well, is it worth getting diagnosed as an adult? Well, it depends. What are you wanting out of your diagnosis? What is your main goal? And then that will dictate whether you want to try and get diagnosed or not. It's a very individual, personal decision. It's worse now. Okay. Yes, it does affect my marriage. I do have a video on that as well. Although I don't know if that video is really deep enough. So maybe I should do another video about how it's affected my marriage. Yes, Mackenzie, completely understand being picked on, and even being picked on by family members. I'm sorry you've experienced that. But there is a such thing called boundaries, and you're allowed to place boundaries in those people who affect you negatively in your life. So do not be afraid to cut ties if you have to cut ties with certain people. Garden State, I do not take medication for my autism. Z and I take medication for our ADHD so we can focus and actually be able to complete tasks. Otherwise, there'd be half-done tasks all through the house. So we do not take medication for autism. They don't have medication for autism. So he has medication for his ADHD. That's all he's taking. And then I'm on medication for my ADHD and my anxiety. I have extreme anxiety and my depression. But if you don't have to take medication, I say stay away from it if you can. And if you do have to be on medication for anxiety, depression, or ADHD, then take the minimum amount possible. And like I said, there is no such thing as medication for autism because autism is a neurological difference. It's all the traits that come with autism. That is, some are treatable, some are not treatable. Cling to Jesus. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, since my connection is so horrible, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and close off this broadcast. It's very disappointing that I've been having these issues with my live streams. I'll try and do a live stream through YouTube. And then if that's not better, I'm probably just not going to do live streams anymore. I'll just have to do these as upload videos. And if I have to do it as upload videos, then I'll make sure my email is listed in the description of every video. And if you have a question that's on a private nature and you don't want to display your question out for open forum, you'll be able to email me your question. And then if you don't mind asking your question in open forum on the uploaded video, I'll be more than happy to answer your question as a response. It was nice getting to know you too, Mackenzie, and I'm so sorry for the quality, you guys. I do apologize. On my end, everything is showing perfect. I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. I don't know how to fix it. So thank you for hanging in there with me, and you guys have an awesome day. And I'll see some of you soon because some of you have your own lives, and I tend to hang out in as many lives as I can. So until then, bye guys, and always remember, dare to be you, dare to be different, be blessed, love from Montana.